Nah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Brady's Peach Tea, episode 187 for those who are counting. Happy Super Bowl Sunday for those who are celebrating. A lot of stuff to get to today. We got a Super Bowl size show for you this morning. It's a Sunday morning. I think the first time we've done Sunday morning, right? We've done Saturday morning. We've done other stuff.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was the first one. So,
yeah, so this is our after church show, so it'll be a bit more somber, right? Saturday's raucous because it's Saturday morning cartoons, but now we're all just getting back from church.
Yes, everyone's
watching.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's free of their sins or what. All right, so we do have a lot to get into, though. We have a Fantastic Four First Steps teaser trailer that we got dropped on Tuesday. There's a lot of people chatting. We also got Harley Quinn Season 5, Episode 4 to talk about. We got Invincible is back for Season 3. They got their premiere. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man still rolling along. And we got 3 more episodes of that. And we continue our look back at the Captain America MCU franchise with Captain America Civil War, which ironically introduced us to the MCU Spider-Man, along with Black Panther and stuff like that. So, lots to get to today. But what is up, Jason? What's going on?
Nothing much. Just getting ready for my Super Bowl. Very excited. I got my Super Bowl picks. I think the Bruins are going to take it against the Nets. I don't know.
That's awesome. Oh my god! But I would give to see the Boston Bruins playing the Brooklyn Nets in a football game. I would kill to see that. I gotta be honest.
Someone should make me the sports czar of New York or the sports czar of the country. I'll make it happen. We're calling Wayne Gretzky out of retirement so he can play football.
Yes. Oh man.
My very limited knowledge of sports is the early 2000s Yankees, and only, I don't know if you know this, Ed, but because we hang around the same people, we especially did then. I made a bet with Pete, as a friend of mine. He bet me that I couldn't convince all of our friends I became a huge diehard Yankee fan. And so I said the only caveat was he had to give me information, stats and stuff. And so I won that bet. And the way I opened that bet was I came to the bar and I went, guys, I just made a bet with Pete that I was going to convince you all I became a hardcore Yankee fan. So, let's go Yankees. Tell me everything you know. Get me. And so I started going to games. And this was my plan from the beginning. I started to play like, hey, I see what you guys see in this. I want to go to more games. And then once I convinced them all, I got my bet.
You're done.
Because I really just, it was more about the long con than it was the baseball.
Nice. Did you enjoy yourself when you went to these games, though? Like, what was it torture? Honestly.
It wasn't torture. I actually enjoyed going to baseball games live. But it has very little to do with the sport. I like being in the outdoors. I like, you get the oversized beer and a hot dog. You got some friends there. You're talking. You're looking over every now and then. So, every now and then, I'll go to my wife and and some friends. Like, that doesn't happen often, but we'll go to like a Met game because it's closer.
Okay. Nice.
And, again, I don't care what the team's doing, but the experience is fun. It's just not something I could ever watch on like TV and follow.
Okay, no, there are some people that also just enjoy it live. You know what I mean? Like they don't really get into it on TV too much, but live is just a whole nother experience, like you were mentioning. So
it's an experience.
That's awesome, dude. All right. Well, speaking of an experience that I think we're gonna have this summer during baseball season is Fantastic Four First Steps, because we did get our trailer that dropped on Tuesday morning, and Jason, I don't know if I told you about this, but I kind of got wind of it as it got a little closer. Marvel went all the way in on this thing. Besides, I thought they were just going to release it on GMA, on Good Morning America. They went steps further. They had it like at a launch base, a space shuttle launch base. They invited fans there. They were giving away swag. And they had the four, right? They had the Fantastic Four come out and introduce the trailer. They asked them some softball questions here and there. but it was pretty quick. And this was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they dropped the trailer live streamed it. And I usually leave my house around 8 o'clock, and I couldn't walk away from it. I was on my phone, dressed and ready to walk out the door, and I had to see it happen. I did, and I got very lucky with my commute, and actually got to work on time still. So
that is pretty awesome. And I have to say that it's been hard to not watch this trailer. This is one I've wanted to see. But my dedication to the show, I promised this would be my first reaction. So this is the first time I'm going to see it.
All right, so let's all watch it together and check this thing out.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. Sunday at 7 on the dot, no matter what. We're all here.
Herbie, how's that sauce coming? Yeah, I'll be the judge of that. Okay. Is this guy good or what? I want to add a couple cloves of garlic. Not because it's not delicious. I just want to add a little bit of zip. Okay?
B-5.
Before we went up the first time, you couldn't turn invisible. Ben wasn't a rock.
The best pilot in the world right here.
Yeah. Best looking, he means.
And Johnny never caught fire.
Ben has always been a rock. Johnny is Johnny.
Hi.
And I am right here. Whatever life throws at us, we'll face it together. As a family.
All right, Jason,
Nice. That looks good.
your thoughts?
That looks good. I do. That looks really good. I like the retro. It kind of feels like the Fallout show, right? It kind of feels like the game, like the pre post-apocalypse, which is good because that's also what Fallout is doing, like that. Sorry, I guess it was my internet as well after all. But
all good.
I did. Yeah, I think they look great. I think except I do have to say I don't love the way Pedro Pascal looks as Reed. I'll get over it, but my friend hit the nail on the head literally when it comes to describing it. He's like, my Reed Richards needs to have an angular head, and kind of that's how I feel. But whatever, Pedro Pascal's a good actor; he'll be fine. I'm excited to see a real Galactus, not a space tornado or whatever the hell it was in that god awful Silver Surfer movie we did.
Yeah, that was all.
I can't say what I normally call it because my son is to the left of me.
Yes.
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, you know what I say about it usually. Yeah, I think this looks good. I mean, I think the Thing looks really good. I like him in motion. You know, I've only seen stills up until now. Although I do got to say, Sue Storm, like, you know, Ben's always been a rock. Not literally, Sue. He might have been a rock inside, but he was flesh and blood outside. Come on, that's unfair.
Well, you know what she was going for there. Like, Johnny's a hothead and everything like that. And yeah, they might just say, hey, you know, the accident basically amplified whatever, you know, sort of may have been inside. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what the comic book was, right? Because Ben Grimm was to himself and kind of closed off, and yet Johnny's the hothead. Reed stretches himself very thin, which is, you know, work-wise. And Sue Storm's a woman, and all women in the 60s were invisible. So there you go.
Yeah, it does kind of line up there. Yeah, I really like this trailer. It's a teaser trailer. It's meant to just whet the appetite, like very much, just to get you started. It gives you basically an idea, a good look of the film. It is kind of what we suspected, right? It was going to be kind of like a 60s, not the MCU, right? Because this is another universe they're coming from. So we got to see that. We got to see all the stuff you need from Fantastic Four for the most part, right? Like, we got to see the Four, we got to see the Baxter Building. We got, I guess they're going to, I don't know, think that's their actual Fantastic car that we see driving, like that 60s model there. I don't think that's exactly it. But it still looks really cool. If that is their version of the Fantastic car, maybe in the beginning, that's fine. We do see the Fantastic Four are known. This isn't like a secret thing at all. Like, they are the celebrities or like the superhero team of this universe that they're in, right? And this version of New York City, we see the kids with the thing masks and stuff like that.
I like that. So that's what I was going to say. I love that the kids had the Halloween mask of the Thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there was a lot of that. We got to see a brief glimpse of Galactus, at least from the back of his head. At least there was no Silver Surfer to be seen yet. I'm sure they're probably saving her. I know some had mentioned that we see Johnny Flame On, and we see Ben, as himself, and we see Sue turn invisible. But they don't show Reed stretching quite yet, which I'm not really that concerned about. I'm sure they're in post-production. Still, this movie doesn't come out until July. That's probably why we don't see Silver Surfer either. Maybe those things are still being worked on. Yeah, you got to save something. You don't want to give everyone everything.
You got to save something. No, I don't want to see the whole movie. It's actually one of the things I like about the MCU that I dislike about most movies nowadays. It's like the MCU makes you think they've given you the whole movie in the trailer, but what they've given you is the first 10 minutes, and you don't realize that till you see it. Other movies will give you the whole damn movie in the trailer, and so save it. I don't need to see everything.
Yeah, and
I still think, because I know a lot of people are bitching and moaning about female Silver Surfer, who, again, was in the comic book, guys. Read yourself a comic book there. But I do still think that this is going to be alternate timeline. We're good. Like, my prediction of this movie is they're fighting Galactus. Galactus is going to destroy their planet, and they're going to escape into a different time zone line. And that's when we're going to get Norrin Rad, because they're going to come and go, wait, Galactus is going to come to this planet too. It's only a matter of time. And I think that's what I think the impetus is going to be.
Dude, that is a really, really good layout of what you believe that to be the case. And honestly, that actually sounds great. I think that, because we both said that we think they're going to jump to the MCU at some point. There's some eagle-eyed fans have noticed that on the chalkboard that there's that shot of Reed using that chalkboard, that it looks like he's building the multiversal tunnel right there on that chalkboard. So that could already be like he has to come up with like an escape plan, for he probably is trying to save the world, all right, and all the people in the world that inhabit the world. But I mean, I'm sure he won't be able to do it, and it'll turn out he'll save what he can that's there. I love the fact that we see Herbie for the first time in live action. Cool. That's really cool. His interaction with the Thing was also great. And I love the fact that when the Thing is like testing the food and everything, he's moving his hand, you hear little rock crackles like rubbing together and everything.
That was nice touch.
Attention to detail,
It's a very nice touch.
Another thing here that some people I've seen floated out there, and I wanted to run it by you, was where the Baxter Building is in this New York City. Someone speculated it's exactly where Stark Tower is or was in the MCU.
Oh.
So that might help to tie in why and where, because they're going to explain why Victor Von Doom looks exactly like Tony Stark in this. And I do wonder if that plays a role in this on some level.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of interesting. Like I want to see how they handle it, because some people I've read different things. Some people think he's going to be a Stark. Some people think he's just someone who looks like Tony Stark and has no relation to him. I don't know, and I don't even know from it, to be honest with you. I just have to see what they do with it. But if they are on the if they're in Stark Tower, if that's what the Baxter Building is, yeah, then absolutely that has to play into it, right? I mean, that can't be an accident that you get the guy who played Tony Stark to come back and then put the Baxter Building where Stark Tower is. You know, I mean, maybe that's a key way they escape. Maybe they go from the Baxter Building to Stark Tower, and that's like, you know, how they get to 616 proper.
I don't know. It's a really, there's a lot. I mean, we have a long time of speculation, but yeah, it is really fascinating. And I do think that we're going to see Captain America: Brave New World next week, right? That's next week. Thunderbolts, we both said we're excited for, and that'll be in May. We have July. This movie comes out within 2 weeks of Superman. So there's,
oh wow,
yeah, July is going to be massive for moviegoers and for us as well. But I honestly do think Fantastic Four: First Steps might be the movie I'm the most excited about under our preview like this year, because I don't know. It just looks very different than anything else what we were getting and that we've gotten before. Even granted that this is technically the third official and fourth unofficial attempt at bringing the Fantastic Four to live action.
Yeah, I have to say that I am mostly come here. I'm sorry, my son wants to come on the screen and say hello.
Hey, how's it going, Finn?
I am most excited for Fantastic Four. Because I want a proper one. We never got a proper Fantastic Four. We got the Roger Corman one, which we didn't really get. We had to steal that one because it wasn't released. And then we got the first one with which I did like. I think I said I have a soft spot for that movie, but it wasn't a proper Fantastic Four. And, no, and then but everything after that was garbage. That Fan Four stick that which should have been called "We Need to Keep the Copyright." I mean, that was just abysmal. So I'm happy to actually see a genuine comic book accurate version, and I'm really excited for Doctor Doom. And I'm not sure how. I still don't know how I feel about it being Robert Downey Jr. I'm not going to know how I feel until I see it, because if it were anyone but Robert Downey Jr., I'd be hating it. I'd be like, no. I wanted someone, not someone who's in, give me someone new. But it's Robert Downey Jr., and I kind of will always give him the benefit of the doubt. But having said that, it's going to be a proper Doom. It's going to be a proper Fantastic Four. I'm actually going to get to see Galactus. I'm actually going to get to see a well-rendered Silver Surfer. It's giving me the 60s aesthetic. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I know we joked around over the years about you have a hatred for the Fantastic Four because, you love Doctor Doom so much. But all joking aside, though, it looks really fucking cool, and I'm pretty hyped for this, man. And yeah, and this kicks off Phase 6. This is the first Phase 6 film.
Yes, and I think this is going to be the film that at least they're trying to do this, where they say to the fans "Hey, stop bitching, we're back."
Yeah,
because all we've heard, even I was reading some stuff today. And all I've heard, all you ever read is they peaked at Endgame. They're never going to do Endgame. And it's no, they're trying to do something different. I mean, stop it. Would you? I mean, I kind of want to ask these people: would you prefer that they just gave up after Endgame and did nothing?
Yeah, exactly. What is it that you want? To me, that reaffirms anyone who would say something like that reaffirms my theory, because we've theorized about exactly what one of the many reasons why the MCU is not at its height at the moment. It's not in a toilet like some would want you to believe, but it's just inconsistent, right? There's inconsistency here. Yes. Movie to movie, there's not remember we used to talk about hashtag in Marvel we trust. Even we have scaled it back a little bit with that, but we still understand that we're usually going to be entertained on some level, whether it's highly entertained or it's okay, that was cool. And once in a while you get a dud, which does happen to every franchise. And if we're going to be honest, we did get somewhat of a couple of, not everything was perfect before Endgame. There was a couple of misses here and there.
No, That's the thing. Don't forget that before Phase 4, I always used to say, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been Thor: The Dark World. And now I say it could have been worse. It could have been The Eternals. So it's like, but I would put Shang-Chi above some of Phase 3, 1, 2, and 3. Shang-Chi was an excellent movie. They've had. I think Black Widow. People sleep on Black Widow. That's a really good movie.
Yeah, I really like
Black
Widow. And people get shit on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I know Quantumania takes a lot of hit. I didn't hate it as much as other people, but I get where people are not crazy about it. But I don't know, to say like they've done nothing good since Phase 4. It's like, no, I would say that maybe at least 2 of the movies they've done, and I'm just saying because I can't think of all the movies they've done since Phase 3. I would put a couple of them over some of the first movies in the first 3 phases. I mean, so it's hit or miss. It's not been like everything's garbage.
No, and I think it's just a lazy take. To me, it just basically that would be a fan basically who really doesn't know what they're talking about. Is just kind of like running with the lazy take here and didn't actually sit down and take a minute to watch and like decide for themselves like what it is that they want to do. Because listen, post Endgame, we got Spider-Man Far From Home, got Spider-Man No Way Home, we got Shang-Chi.
Oh yeah.
Right, we got Deadpool and Wolverine, which is an MCU film. It is definitely an MCU film. We got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
That's right. So that's 5 I would say are better at least. Okay.
We got Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Also one that we both enjoyed. Like Thor: Love and Thunder was very, a lot of fans didn't like it. They felt it went too goofy. We both had fun with it for what it was, but we, agree that, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is a game changer or something like that.
Right. But then we had Guardians 3, which I thought was
sorry,
fantastic.
You're right. Yep, absolutely.
I forgot about that one. But so, I mean, I would say that we had more good movies than bad movies.
Yes.
But I think the backlash is too, and I hate to say it, but the backlash is too. It's like, oh, why is it so woke? Why is it race and sex swap? Like, I think a lot of that hate is that too.
It is, and it's unfortunate.
Agatha.
Yes,
it is because they're not actually taking. They're not taking the work for what it is. They're putting their own like political spin on it or whatever, and that. These movies are what they are. Comic books have always been woke, quote unquote. I mean, that's just read a comic book and you'll get that.
Yeah, comic books. Again, the people who are saying these things, I think, have never opened up and actually read a comic book in their entire lives, or also not watching the actual material that they're judging in, and they're putting
Right.
their own agendas into the films that aren't even really there. They're claiming the movies are putting these agendas, but I think it's the other way around.
Correct. I agree with you. I mean,
and the TV shows,
Shang-Chi isn't woke because Shang-Chi isn't woke because it stars an Asian dude. Shang-Chi is Asian in the comic book. I mean,
yes, exactly. I don't know. It's a thing, but whatever. Bottom point is like this is we said like last year, we kind of felt like Marvel took a second to like reset a bit. They gave us Deadpool and Wolverine. Some good stuff there, X-Men 97 and whatnot. Like that was kind of rebirth of the mutants into the MCU, which I thought was cool. And this year, they have a lot of projects coming out, and honestly, I'm pretty excited about all of them. Like I can't say there's any of them where I'm like, we'll see. I think both the shows and the movies, they can be kicking ass. Again by the end of this, so just got to deliver. That's
I agree.
I
agree.
All right. So let's jump over because we have a lot of Marvel to cover. But let's jump over to DC quickly as we got Harley Quinn season 5, episode 4. Let me drop that spoiler ticker across the bottom. And I'm curious I'm curious to talk about this because Jason, what did you think of this episode? I have thoughts.
All right, so I thought it was interesting getting Brainiac's backstory. Because like to go through it real quick, I'll do it in a sentence or two. It's a flashback showing Brainiac's origin. He's a family man, much like people on Earth, but they're robot Brainiac creatures. he's got a job that makes him go to other planets and look for perfection or chance his planet could be destroyed. He scoffs it off as like 1% is not big enough to worry about. He comes back and his planet's destroyed. It's just him and the monkey, Coco. They take the ship and he goes nuts and he starts going to perfect planets. And then actually, I kind of think this is very an interesting thing. He starts preserving parts of planets to preserve the perfection of the species. And you see him first do this with Metropolis, because in the comic, he does have a little city of, not Metropolis, Krypton.
Yeah.
He does have a little city from Krypton in the comic book. And like this version of him, like, that's kind of not evil. I mean, he did just save that city from destruction. That's what he said. And that's what he said he was doing. He's like, this planet's going to destroy itself from the core. Let me preserve their culture. So I thought that was interesting, making Brainiac an understandable villain with an actual backstory, that his villainy is maybe questionable depending on what's going on. But yeah, then it's that. Then we cut, and that's literally 25 minutes of this 30-minute episode. And then in the end, he confronts Harley. We find out Coco's dead, even though he's talking to the monkey, because we see its bones. And Harley's like, he's effing the bones. That was funny. My girl
that
Harley.
was funny.
He wants to kill Harley and Ivy because they bring the perfection level of Metropolis down. And Lena Luthor, we know what she's up to now, comes in. She's working with Brainiac, and she's like, nope, I'm working with you. I want them saved. Put them back. Wipe their memories. And he does. And they wake up, and then they talk about how that food's going to run through them. And then Lena shows up, and that's it. But you do see Harley at the end in her food, like sketching out what Brainiac looked like. So it's there. But that's the episode. That's literally the episode.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I didn't love this episode. I thought the Brainiac stuff was interesting that we were getting his origin story. I thought a lot of the humor was in the way how they were so eloquently having like these he's having these dad and conversations, and he's having his thing with his wife, and the way that just phrased, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, because they're machines, right? That's the whole thing. And he's like, well, we should exchange data. Well, we exchanged data yesterday. But statistically, exchanging data in a couple with like us should happen 2 to 3 times a week. Oh, okay. I am done. I will take care of myself. Like that I thought that was funny.
Yes, exactly.
And then the moment when he's about to watch the exchanging data videos, and Coco comes in, the fact that that's their pornography, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, there were things I thought were funny about the Brainiac stuff, but I don't know, just overall, it was kind of weird where I was just like, I don't know, I kind of thought the origin was a little drawn out, but
I agree.
Yeah, I think it was a bit drawn out. I don't think he needed an entire episode.
I agree. I think I was thinking that as I was watching it. I enjoyed it. Again, it was interesting to see that. I've never seen Brainiac. I don't actually know much about Brainiac because I've never been a Superman guy. And now that I become a Superman guy, like that. So I was interested to see his history and his backstory, but I agree with you. That should have been maybe literally half or less of the episode, and we should have done more with Harley, because Harley and Ivy are in it for like 5 minutes.
If that, yeah. That was my knock against the episode. I just think that the gag with Brainiac was a little dragged out, and I thought, even though it was funny for a while, and I needed a bit more Harley Quinn and Ivy in my Harley Quinn episode. Those were my knocks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I mean, I don't think it was a bad episode. It's just probably one of the weaker episodes of this series. But that's a hard bar. That's a very high bar. Yeah.
So that's why I was like, again, I wasn't in love with it. I'm curious to see what they do with Brainiac now that you have him here, and I'm sure they'll do some good things with him. But I don't know. I wasn't over the moon with this episode. I thought it was like, okay. Plus, we had also a lot of shit to watch this week, so maybe it was also like the other stuff. I was like, wow, this is, crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this after Invincible, and we'll get into it, but I thought the Invincible stuff we got was fantastic. And so I'm used to this being like the one that makes me go, oh, God, my Harley. But I agree with you. Yeah, it wasn't bad, but it was a weaker one of this series.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, like you said, the bar's been set so high, it's like, okay. All right. Well, speaking of which,
plus there was no Bane.
Yeah, there was no Bane, man. There was no Clayface. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's shift gears over then to Prime Video. We got Invincible is back with season 3, episodes 1 through 3 dropped on Prime Video on Thursday. So as Prime Video tends to do with their series, they will usually drop the first 3 episodes to get you in there, and then it'll be one a week after that. So, yeah, Jason, you had mentioned my quick overall thoughts is I thought this was a awesome start to this season. I mean, wow. Were these 3 really, really good episodes of Invincible?
Yeah, I think this is the strongest start to a season this show has had. And I just want to remind everyone that when we first started covering this, I hated it. So I've come a really long way on this show. These 3 episodes, like, pitch perfect. I don't really have knocks against them. They're really giving us character, and that's what I like about the show, right? And that's what really started to sway me. Was it really is character centric? It is about these characters, right? And talk about like an origin episode done well. We get in the second episode. I'm going to jump around. We get Cecil's origin, which
I thought was really, really great.
Wow. Like, he was a tough as nails, like, agent in the company is now running. He goes into this like hippie, shop, finds this pretty much gas bomb that will strip the skin off of people. He gets the crap beat out of him, but he holds his own. I mean, they're super powered creatures, so he holds his own against them.
No.
They go nuts and go, hey, we embrace death. And they just open it up and accept it. You see them melting. And he like throws them in there, and closes it, and he's holding it back, and you see it come out and it's melting his skin. And you find out that the reason he's got the scar is because it's the only part of his real skin left, because they had to graft new skin on him.
And he chooses to not have that part graphed because he wants it as a reminder to never let this happen again. That's badass.
Yes, that absolutely is. So this is really important because it's being paralleled with Mark, who has been training with him and trusting him, finds out that he has repurposed some old villains. The Batman type character that we got in the past who went nuts and started killing people,
Darkwing,
and the Darkwing, and the mad scientist who pretty much was cutting people up and making them cyborgs, and he hurt his best friend's boyfriend. And he finds out through this big battle, which we'll talk about by itself. And I guess I should have started there, but I was really excited about the Cecil stuff. That Cecil has been using them and did not put them in prison. And he goes crazy. And he goes to the Pentagon. Cecil brings him to the White Room, and he's like, the White Room is for my protection. Because right now you're scaring the shit out of me, which I thought that was so cool. White Room goes open. Mark pretty much tears through these creatures. Goes back to he finds out that he's got this thing in his ear, and they can like control him and ground him, and he winds up going to the Hall of Justice, whatever it's called in this universe. Some of them side with him, some of them don't. They take the thing out of his ear. He's done with Cecil. But the amazing part is you see Cecil went through the exact same thing after he got his skin grafted back, because he goes into the field with his boss, and the two people and they wound up killing about 100 or so people, you find out. Like, he saved a lot of people that day, but he couldn't save everyone. And they're helping. And he goes, "Oh, let me thank them." Cock, bang, bang, right in the head. And they send him to prison.
Yeah, and
And-
Cecil learns. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there is a quote from Cecil's boss at the time that he ends up quoting later on to his guys is, that you can either be a nice guy or you can be the guy that saves the world, but you can't be both.
Yeah.
Which is why Cecil is the way he is now. And I thought it was a really interesting origin story that explains so much about a character that we knew virtually nothing about prior to episode 2 of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad they waited 3 seasons to give us this, because it's mirroring what Mark is going through, and I think that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cecil goes to prison, and they send him to superhero prison or supervillain prison, where he's probably put a lot of these guys in there, and they're like, when he's coming in, fresh meat, and they're salivating, and his cellmate's this huge blob-like guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, his last cellmate was brought out of here in a bucket. And then you go 3 years later, and he is running the joint.
Yeah.
Like the blob-like character is like, sir, we have a visitor for you. And it's his old boss. And he's sitting at a desk. He's like, what do you want? It's like, I'm retiring. We see what you've done with this place. I want you to take over the mantle. And he's like, you put me in prison. And he goes, no, I rehabilitated you. I don't waste assets. That was what his old boss kept saying. I don't waste assets. I rehabilitate them. This was your rehabilitation. You've proven that you can do this. Take the job and I'll get you out of here. And I think that's what turns Cecil, right? That's why he becomes like that, because he is forced to see that, he broke the law. He did something. They rehabilitated him. So I think it was so brilliantly done, and they weren't hitting us over the head with it.
No.
It's like that was it.
Yeah, no, and this is what he's trying to. Yeah, and this is what he's trying to teach Mark now, which is obviously going to be a bit tougher because Mark is a teenager, right? And Mark is a superpowered being there, and also Cecil he still can't shake looking at Mark and seeing part of Omni-Man.
Yes,
he can't. He's always going to have that in the back of his mind, which I thought was really interesting. What complicates this cycle of this lesson.
Yeah, and we do see in the flashback that Cecil's the one who made first contact with Omni-Man. So I'm sure that there is a seed of guilt, like I let this happen.
Doesn't want to let it happen again. Hence, like the scar.
Right.
So
exactly, right? That's as a reminder. I thought that was so well written. And so the impetus so far this season, I think, is going to be Mark is really fighting against Cecil. Like there's big stuff. But let's jump back to what happens in the first episode, Doc Seismic, which is this nobody villain. How Mark realizes what's going on with Cecil. He pretty much uses these creatures that are living under the earth to grab every superhuman, with the exception of Mark and Eve. And Mark is trying to put some moves on Eve, and there is will they, won't they, will they, won't they. It eventually happens, but there's this like drag out knuckle fight where Mark and Eve are getting their behinds beaten by these creatures, and there's a cool moment where Doc Seismic goes, and nothing happens, and Mark goes, I take it back. I'm not impressed. And he goes, oh, that wasn't a weapon. I was communicating. And then all of these things start coming out.
Yeah. Hey, when Doc Seismic does his, I don't know, lack of a better term, I'll use the Hulk term, thunderclap, right in basically Eve's face, and she's gets kicked back and her nose is bleeding. I actually am not going to lie. I thought for a moment, and it's because it's this show or The Boys or something, I wondered if they just killed fucking Adam Eve. I was fooled for a second. I'm not going to lie. I thought it.
Look, never forget that this show started off with Omni-Man brutally murdering every single superhero that was set up as to be our Justice League. Like anyone but Mark can die. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, you're right.
So they have that fight. It's very important because Mark and Adam Eve they're not winning. They're about to be killed. Like there's this creature that puts this poisonous thing through Mark. And actually, I thought when he goes after Cecil, I thought that maybe this thing was making him more aggressive, amping him up, agitating him. It wasn't, but that was kind of a cool like misdirection, I thought, from them. And the way the day is saved is they call in the Batman guy, which
Darkwing.
Darkwing. They call in Darkwing, who has this
not a duck though.
This ability, not a duck. That's why it sounded so familiar.
We weren't getting dangerous.
I wish though. Mal, give me some Launchpad. But actually, it's funny because Darkwing Duck was a Batman kind of ripoff. So that I wonder if that was intentional calling him Darkwing. Yeah, I love my Darkwing Duck. I wish they would do something with that so we could cover that on the show.
I used to love Darkwing Duck.
But yeah, so it's great. As well as these cyborgs from that mad scientist, and they free everyone, and they beat Doc Seismic. That without their intervention, every superhero in the world would have died that day.
Yeah,
but Mark is still pissed.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
No, I mean that's what sets off Mark for his episode 2 arc and 3 arc of where he sees Cecil now and never wants to work for him again because he rehabilitates Darkwing. Mark sees him as a murderer, and what the fuck is he doing here? And what's going on? And again, like you had mentioned, we dived into episode 2 a lot, where that is mostly episode 2, and Mark basically tells Cecil, "I'm never fucking working for you again. I don't trust you. If you come anywhere near me or my family ever again, I will kill you." Like he says, I will fucking kill you right there, because Cecil also wants to go after Oliver, who you call from season 2 was his half brother from another planet, little purple kid, and they're living together, with his mom. So it's a complicated thing, but like kudos to his mom, she has taken Oliver in and to caring for him as if he were her own. Yeah, and that's admirable, considering the situation what happened. But Cecil is also saying, all right, well, if he's a part Viltrumite, he's just as strong, if not stronger, than probably Mark can be one day, or Omni-Man. I have to train this kid from the get-go because he got his powers way younger than a teenager. He's like whatever he is,
like
7
5,
or
right?
8 or something. Yeah,
10,
5, 7, something like that. Yeah, he's under 10 on something.
Yeah. And it makes sense. And this was really well done, set up, because if you remember the creatures that his mother was, they have such a short lifespan that of course he would get his powers earlier because they grow quicker. So I thought that was really clever. And then that's kind of the third part I want to talk about, the third big arc, and then we can just fill in some small stuff and then we can be done. But so the third big thing is Oliver wants to use his powers. He wants to train with Mark. I love this moment because this is a very great character moment that they didn't have to put in, but they did. When Oliver's like, well, it's okay. What do you mean I can't kill? You told Cecil you would kill him if he came near us. And Mark went, I need him to take me seriously. I'm not going to kill him. We don't kill people in this family. Beautiful character moment. And sets up what happens with Oliver. So, the Mauler twins, the clones, whatever the brothers, whatever the frick they are, my boys. And I hope that they pull the duplicate. Just saying.
Hope so. I really hope so.
I will not be okay if they're dead. These guys are like, they make me laugh every time. They're so funny. But so they are pretty much like, they got a machine that messes up your inner ear. And they said, hey, who would have guessed? Everyone's weakness is, being able to walk or something like that. And we do find out that is also Mark's weakness because it makes him not be able to fly. And so they go into this missile silo. They pretty much incapacitate all of the good guys, including Mark. Look at each other and go, just in case we don't win. They turn the key. They throw up the nuclear missile. Mark goes after it. Oliver, seeing on the news that his brother was in trouble, goes over there and he fights. And the Mauler's like, it's a kid. Get out of here, kid. Go away. And Mark's like, get out of here. Whew. My jaw dropped because he literally flew through one of the Maulers and blew out his, like, from the back. And he's covered in viscera and bone and blood. And the other Mauler goes, and he broke that Mauler's jaw too because he hit him so hard he broke his jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I give up. I give up. And he goes, I don't care.
Boom.
That was a clear choice that will certainly be explored as we go on. And then then Cecil comes, and Cecil's like, because all of the superheroes are like, what the hell did this kid just do? And Cecil is actually trying to do right by the kid. He's like, no, you scared them. They have never seen a 7-year-old murder 2 people before. We can work this out. Relax. And Mark comes down and a switch flips. He grabs him by the throat. He lifts him up. And Cecil's like, your brother just brutally murdered the Mauler twins. I'm trying to help here. And he takes Oliver home. And they find out, like, Oliver doesn't care about killing. He doesn't regret it. He's like, it was an accident. And we all know, they know it wasn't. The first one, maybe, not the second one. Yeah. And Mark and his mother have a conversation like, oh, he sounds like your dad. He sounds like Omni-Man. Like, and I think that's what a setup. What a setup. Because Mark and Oliver are going to be fighting by the end of this season.
Because also Oliver is going to continue to age, and he'll end up being Mark's age probably very soon. Probably in a couple episodes. Yes. I'm going to be shocked if he was Mark's age, or at least by the finale of this season. And that's when we're going to get that throwdown between those two. A couple of the other things I thought was really interesting, and ironically, we're covering Captain America Civil War today, is the kind of civil war that's being somewhat set up in Invincible.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Like, we get those who chose to stay with the Guardians of the Globe and work with Cecil, and then Rexplode and a couple of others. They went, I know, Bulletproof, Explode, Rexplode, the little girl that turns into the monster also.
Right. The robot kid.
Yeah, exactly. Robot went ahead too. They all went back to, they're going to have a new name, but they basically went back to being Teen Team, except for Duplicate. She stayed with the Guardians of the Globe because she's about to marry Immortal.
Yeah. Which, age gap on that, kind of a new.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, I love the Civil War split that's going on. And who's the guy who, like, he's now my favorite remaining Guardian of the Globe, where he's like, I know it's bad. I agree with you guys, but don't do this. This is not the way. Like, because he's literally just like, I am part of this, but I get why you're doing this. But come on, can we just come together and talk? So he's the most rational of them all at this point. But I don't know his name.
Let me just double check quickly because I was gonna say the one who's actually pretty funny. Black Samson.
Okay, Black Samson. Yeah, he's the level-headed one so far.
Yeah. We also do get a little bit of we actually get a little bit of Omni-Man with Alan the Alien, who are in their prison together, and they have a conversation there. I mean, it wasn't like a crazy amount there, but basically just to let you know they're still out there. Neither one of them are dead.
And it's planting seeds. It's planting seeds because they're in the cell together. And Omni-Man is like, why don't you just get out of here? He's like, because you won't come with me. Because he can. He's that powerful, right? Don't forget, they did something to him where he's like a Viltrumite murder machine now. And Omni-Man's like, well, they're going to, shoot you with lasers till they figure out what makes you tick. And then we literally see that happen. And they bring him back. And he's like, I'm okay. Omni-Man's like, oh, you survived. He's like, yeah. Oh, were you worried? And that's the seed they're planting, right? Because he's there to form that friendship to sort of bridge to it. And again, it's not a lot. It's 2 scenes. And I believe it's a mid-credit scene.
Well, by the way, I want to also comment on that. I'm sure I did. I wish Invincible would stop with the fake mid-credit scene. Like every single episode,
Yeah.
like just put it at the end of the episode. What are we doing? Like, what the hell's the point of this? I think that's kind of dumb. That's my only knock and criticism about Invincible. It's just unnecessary. I'm starting to wonder though, because the Viltrumite that was there last season that fought Mark, and they had this whole drag out battle, and she warned them that something worse would be coming back. Do you think that might be sending Alan the Alien back as like this super incredibly strong, way more powerful being then to go take out Mark?
I mean, they'd have to explain that a hell of a lot because I haven't like
Kind of like
a
Winter Soldier type thing. They might Winter Soldier him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see. They'd have to be setting that up though. I think it could be, but they'd have to start setting that up. I just kind of assume they'd be sending another bigger, better Viltrumite.
You're probably right, but it just kind of made me wonder because you're like you did remind me that the Viltrumites did something to Alan. So I started to wonder if that's maybe what it is. And it's also probably because we've been watching the Captain America movies and I'm thinking of Bucky now. So that could have just been like my own misdirect in my head.
But I mean, look, anything's on the table. Anything's on the table in this show. I mean, that's kind of why I enjoy it so much is because I don't actually know what's going to happen.
Likewise. All right. Anything else on Invincible before we keep rolling along?
Just want to call out the comedy of Rick Explode because I love Jason Mantzoukas and he's doing a bang up job here. The line because he gets taken naked into the subterranean prison, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm alive. Mike's out. It's okay. Who cares?" That was funny, and the fact that he over a new leaf, like that is what the old me would say. The new me says this, but he's still kind of a jerk.
Of course, he's a jerk. He'll always be a jerk.
But I just think that character is just the best comic relief that can also like fight.
Yeah. It was like, was it the Shapesmith or whatever it is? He's just like so far. He has some funny shit, but like, I don't know, fight wise, I'm not sure how much I'm putting stock into what he can do.
No, not at all. Like, I think when it does come down to a Civil War thing, I actually think the group that's split apart is going to be the winners.
Yeah, against the Guardians.
If they do fight the Guardians. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So let's bounce back over to Marvel, where we got Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episodes 3 through 5, because they are choosing to do this release schedule. I'm guessing it's because Marvel has such a. Well, I was talking with Rick about this right during the week, and I'm starting to wonder if it's just because they have so much shit coming out, they just had no choice but to like get this out when they had to. Because right after this Daredevil Born Again comes out. So it's just like right into it. So, but all right. Well, let's jump into it. I am still like really having a great time with this show, like the different aspect. And this week, all 3 episodes, the underlining thing that this was taking place. All this is taking place throughout while Civil War is happening. In their timeline.
And I have to say that's something I did for the most part like these 3 episodes, but I did not like that because like, okay, you're telling me that it's a different universe type thing, but then you're still like grounding it in the MCU. It just kind of felt weird to me, especially because Spider-Man was such a big part of Civil War and he's clearly not going to be here. And just that aspect of it, I found like I kind of wish Marvel would either say it's the MCU and do the Tom Holland Spider-Man, or don't try to live in both worlds. Like, give me something that is completely original to this world, and don't try to go, hey, MCU when it's not the MCU. That was my feeling on that particular part of it.
Yeah, I mean, when these nods do pop in, I'm not going to say like my spider senses started tingling suddenly when Which, by the way, there's been no spider sense tickling just yet, so I'm curious. I guess that's still like in the developmental phase there, but I do think that it did like kind of like get my attention when it was doing that. But I'm also in a weird way seeing this as some sort of a what if. Maybe like it's kind of just I don't know. It's just like again, I just think it's basic. Like what if you just Tony Stark never mentored Peter and Norman Osborn did? That's kind of just the only switcheroo that I'm seeing here. And I know it's not like an official what if, but that's in my mind, that's kind of how I've been taking the show so far.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess for me, because it's not a what if.
No, I know.
Like proper, like it feels like it's living in both worlds. But I mean, look, it's an opinion thing. It works better for you than it does for me. I still don't think it's a bad show.
No, of course. So in episode 3, Norman Osborn invites Peter to a dinner and he basically rents out the whole place, this fancy schmancy restaurant here, which they can have their conversation. Peter's even like trying to order a glass of water after he sees the price menu and is taken aback and ends up just like destroying a bunch of food, huge appetite. Obviously, Norman comments like, "I know why you're burning it off. You're fucking Spider-Man." But this scene was important too because besides that, him wanting to brainstorm with Peter on how to kind of like upgrade Spider-Man exactly how Tony Stark wanted to, right? Like through a suit and everything. This version, though, it explains why Norman's there. It wasn't just kind of like, hey, let's do a switcheroo and that's it. Norman was like, hey, you saved my son. I wanted to find out who Spider-Man is so I can repay him for saving my son. All the genius minds are working for Oscorp. So I had to find out who the hell this was. And that's why he did the internship program. So it wasn't just a whole matter of convenience. Like Norman's got a plan. Norman Osborn's scheming like usual already.
Yes. And I appreciated that, like, because it does ground it. Like, oh no, this wasn't an accident. He was using his resources to find and his intelligence. Because let's not forget, Norman Osborn's pretty smart. He's somewhat of a scientist himself. I'm gonna make that joke every week. But I like that because he's like, yeah. So I looked at the age range and the intelligence range, and I narrowed it down to 5 people, and that's who got the scholarship. And I figured it was just a matter of time until I figured out which one of you it was, and I did.
Yeah, and that was it. And that's smart though. But he's pitching out all his ideas to him, and he's also in that conversation. It's a normal Peter Parker, Norman Osborn conversation where it's just like he's also seeing how smart Peter is because he offers him these things like the scanner radio in your mask, and he's like, I already got that. And he goes, of course you do. I like the fact that we get to see Norman, as always, impressed by Peter Parker and his knowledge, as a young man. So I thought that was cool. But Peter, he offers him a basic job, and Peter declines it at first because he just kind of feels like he didn't want to. Number one, he doesn't want May to find out, right, about any of this. He begs Norman not to tell her because he doesn't want to put her in danger. But then he also doesn't want to put Norman in danger by having this whole thing. So that whole thing with Peter not wanting to put those close to him in danger to keep his secret as best he can, that I thought was a cool thing that was in there. And he declines at first, though, like, his friend's name gives him shit at school when he finds out. Nico, yes. Nico finds out that he declines a job or declines the internship. And, she's also like, I'm going to rebel against the man and all this other stuff and yada, yada, like billionaires and stuff like that. And he eventually sees May trying to sell stuff and everything like that and knows that they need money. So she's like also kind of like he's wrestling again with, do I do this to help May out? But then Nico reminds him, hey, if May knew that you were only doing this for her, she would tell you to quit if you don't genuinely want to be there. Right? So Peter's wrestling a lot throughout that episode until there's a fight with this couple that has these upgraded tech that have that little logo on it, which we do find out who.
On.
Oh yeah, we find out who it was that's behind this. But they have this drag out battle with this couple that's doing a theft there in the street. So he takes them both down. They have that weird thing where they drop off some money. They're doing business with somebody bigger, right? Which pays off in one of the next episodes. But he ultimately decides at the end, because Norman hacks into his scanner and kind of is the guy in a chair for him. He helps him strategically take down the two of them and realizes, okay, I need somebody in my corner, maybe as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. So he accepts it and kind of helps Norman. So they're forming what Norman calls Team Spider-Man. He coins that phrase eventually. He does. And that's basically, Peter's thing through this. But Lonnie finds out he's at school. He tries to do something for his brother, for Peter, to pay for his lunch and pay for Pearl's lunch. He can't. Gets pulled out of school. She drives him home and finds out that his brother has been tied up with this 110th Street gang and wants to rescue his brother from it, and offers a character we meet called Big Donovan. He says, to get my brother out, I will take his place. And Big Don's like, yeah, that's an upgrade. I'm going to take the superstar athlete over here who can probably help me more. And that's kind of where they go from there. And that's this episode. That's at least episode 3 in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that's the Lonnie stuff is what's working best for me. I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. And I'm not going to jump ahead. I'll wait till we can go forward. But that, if you ask me what my favorite part of this show is, it's this very fleshed out backstory for Tombstone, a character that I knew nothing about, and I don't even care if this is his origin in the comic, because this is really good stuff.
Yeah, the Lonnie arc is definitely working for me, and I'm gonna be honest. Everything is kind of I'm digging this show a lot. There's a lot going on here. So in episode 4, Norman calls a meeting with Peter, but then they have this conversation which we referenced briefly. They mention on the news that the Sokovia Accords just happened, right? They're just being implemented. Peter is worried if this applies to him. And there's stuff on the news that Norman shows them that's shots of the airport battle from Civil War that we got, but obviously not involving Spider-Man because he wasn't there this time. So, but in this episode, Norman does a lot of stuff where he wants to upgrade his suit. He wants the New York City to have, he feels like they need their own hero. They also reference, by the way, the Battle of New York from Avengers, because there's a lot of things that are referenced there. But he's like, no, we need the next generation of superheroes, meaning you, Peter. And I'm going to help you with this. We got to do our own thing. He gets a suit with a cape when he goes to stop a robbery and gets caught up in it and gets his ass kicked because of the fucking cape. So now you ever wondered why Spider-Man doesn't have a cape? There you go. There's a pretty damn good reason.
That actually reminds me, in the book Watchmen, I know it's never addressed in the movie, but in the book, they actually address why the superheroes don't wear capes. And part of it is because, hey, remember Dollar Bill Man? He was the guy that the superhero, the banks hired to protect their interests. Yeah, that's a shame what happened to him. He was chasing a guy through a revolving door. He got his cape caught. And they just gunned him down. That's why no one wears capes. So this kind of reminded me of that. Capes look cool, but they are completely impractical.
Yeah, exactly. It just, it shouldn't be a thing, but whatever. We accept it with some. Then there's a Hornet pack that he gets where it's this little buzzing thing and stuff, and he's having trouble flying and stuff like that. And Norman has this conversation with him over the comm saying, because he's like, I'm not Spider-Man anymore. I'm not Spider-Man. He goes, well, why do you have to be Spider-Man? You should be more open to other ideas. You don't have to be a Spider-Man. It's okay. And there's a black glider suit, which looked it kind of reminded me of Darkhawk a little bit. One of the, right? And he scares the shit out of his little girl that he gets a balloon out of. And Norman's like, fuck yeah, I kind of wish. I kind of knew that would be a thing here because she's petrified of him. But they also reference Age of Ultron in that scene, right, where they're having that conversation. where he was like, I don't want you to be like Captain America. Don't be like Tony Stark. What do you mean? Like these guys who have to clean up their own mess, and after an AI robot they created, obviously referencing Ultron. So I also do think there is definitely some anger towards Tony Stark from Norman Osborn in this, and I'm curious to know. Like, I would imagine Iron Man's going to pop up at some point. We're going to get that.
Kind of has to. I'm going to say this after watching this and watching Civil War back to back. Norman Osborn so far a bit more responsible helping a underage person become a superhero than Tony Stark is. Just putting that out there.
In Tony's defense, Homecoming has to happen. But yes, initially you're right. Hey, I need backup. Get this damn kid who can kick ass, and let's just throw him out there.
Yeah. We'll talk about it in the next segment. Yeah. But at least Norman's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a suit. I'm gonna train you. It's not like Norman goes, shit, can we get the kid? Get I don't care if it's a baby. Get him out here.
Yeah. And also then so he goes through these suits, but then he gets the one that we see a lot in the trailer, the white suit. It turns out to be white with blue and a little bit of red in it, but it's a dominantly white suit with this big white spider on it. That's the one that works for him, right? Like that's the one that finally nails it. And did you catch when he first is trying it out and he's on that glass building? There's definitely a Spider-Man 3 kind of like nod that was there. The way he's like on the glass and like, yeah, he flips off of it. Yeah, that definitely screamed Spider-Man 3 to me. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like it's a quick nod,
That's nice.
So he goes in and has this car chase where there's this group he's chasing down. And one of them, her name is Mila Mazurek, she jumps out during the chase. Spider-Man takes them down and stuff like that, but she goes off and she goes to get a weapon. She goes to seek out the person who's been dealing weapons to criminals. We find out this is the logo that was on the couple's suits, the couple's upgraded suit from the episode 3, and hence Dr. Otto Octavius appears.
Yep.
Full classic traditional Doc Ock get up there.
Oh yeah,
but he's Otto Octavius. He's not Doc Ock yet.
Not yet, because he doesn't have the tentacles, but he is ripped right from the 60s comics. Like,
yes,
that's exactly how he looked in the original run of Spider-Man.
I'm sure you did too. I absolutely loved the look of Doc Ock.
Of course I did. Of course I did. That's like this is classic Doc Ock, and I'm excited that he's there. I think he's my favorite Spider-Man villain, and Spider-Man has got the best rogues gallery in the Marvel universe, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So that's high praise for me to say that he's the best of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We talked about this. We think Spider-Man and Batman, respectively, have the best rogues galleries out of any superheroes in whatever universe you want to put them in. But then we also get Lonnie. Lonnie Lincoln is working with the 110th Street gang here. Big Dom sends him uptown to go ahead and get this food order for them from this restaurant, but purposely sends them through the turf of a rival gang, which we find out is called the Scorpions. And of course, is led by Matt Gargan, the Scorpion himself. So the world building and the villains that are caving in on Peter Parker is growing every episode.
It's important to note that this is the Scorpion from the Spider-Man movies. That's where that look is. He's got the tattoos, and so it's not necessarily comics accurate, Matt Gargan, but we have seen this version before in Homecoming, right?
Spider-Man Homecoming, yeah. Unfortunately, never really followed up with, which I really hope they do at some point.
I do too. I think the Scorpion's a cool villain.
Yeah, me too. So there's that whole thing. Lonnie gets the food, and he gets chased down by one of these Scorpions to the train. He barely escapes. He gets back, and he has this conversation with Big Dom, like, "Hey, I need you need to be with us. Like, we're a necessary evil because otherwise they would be running the streets here. They would be running amok, and you and your family you would need us. You would need our protection. So basically convincing him like this whole thing isn't as bad as you make it out to be. Kind of trying to like win him over. Because I do think he sees him as an asset. But when this is all said and done, Peter goes back to Oscorp. He goes to talk to Norman Osborn, goes there and takes off his mask. And of course, Harry is sitting right there. And
of course,
accidentally outs himself as Spider-Man. And that's where episode 4 ends. So, which bleeds into 5. 5, Mila, we see what Mila gets. She gets this unicorn helmet that her crew, when she eventually breaks them out of prison, jokes around that looks like a rhino, but she's more like a unicorn thing, because I do think the big guy will end up being Rhino eventually.
Yes.
I wonder if Dimitri in that gang is actually going to be the Chameleon.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Because they only refer to him
I
as
didn't even
Dimitri.
think about that.
Yeah,
that could be very, very easily, though. I mean, so, and I guess the whole conceit is going to be everyone gets these powers from Octavius, right? Like, that's what I'm guessing. Like, I think the Rhino is clearly inspired by this Octavius creation. The Scorpion's going to have to get that Scorpion suit somewhere. Lonnie's eventually going to become Tombstone. I'm assuming this is all going to be generated from the Octavius line.
It might be, or I do wonder, when is Norman going to break bad?
Yeah. It's eventually, and I wonder if it's going to be comic book Breaking Bad, where Norman's kind of always been a bad guy, or if it's going to be more in the vein of like the Spider-Man movies where he's driven insane. Like, because in that original Spider-Man movie, he's not a bad guy really until he, takes the Goblin gas, and then it kind of fractures his mind, and we even see that. Where like sometimes he is a good guy and sometimes he's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. They've got me guessing here with Norman Osborn, to be completely honest with you. And you're right. I do think a lot of the tech will probably come from Octavius, but I wonder if some of it will come from Norman Osborn too eventually. Because the thing is that we get here that we learn about Otto Octavius now. Remember, keep in mind he's not quite officially Doc Ock yet. He's only selling these gadgets and these upgrades to villains as kind of like a means to an end. He doesn't seem to like them. He doesn't want to be a villain himself necessarily. He wants his genius to be seen, and he name drops like Tony Stark, like Banner, like Osborn, and he has a resentment for all of them. So that's what I'm saying. Now you got two people who we know will be villains, expressing resentment for Stark, one having resentment for the other. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I thought that was pretty interesting that they framed Otto Octavius like this.
Agreed.
So so we had mentioned, Norman suggests to Peter, Harry should be brought into Team Spider-Man. I can't always be around. He can be what does he call himself? The dude in a chair or something like that? Or,
yes.
He calls it something like that. So I think that was cool. And we learn about Harry Osborn in this universe was he drops off Peter gives him a ride to school, and Nico, they seen together, but meanwhile everyone's talking about it. Peter's friends with Harry Osborn, who Harry Osborn's like a social media influencer, like a celebrity in this universe, which I thought was pretty interesting. And a modernization.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Again, I kind of miss the more classic Harry Osborn, but I'm okay with it. My only thing is someone needs to cut that dude's man bun off, man. That bothers me. Like, I hate the man bun. I really do.
So you want to hear something funny? Rick said the same thing to me after the first 2 episodes, but then recalled that he at one time tried the man bun.
Well, who did?
Rick. Rick tried the man bun.
Did he really?
And then he walked back the Harry Osborn comment.
Oh my God! Of course he did.
So I agree, though. I don't love the whole aesthetic with the hair and stuff like that with Norman, but whatever. I mean, with Harry, I don't care, whatever. They're modernizing,
Yeah,
changing things up a little bit.
Not
So
the
it's
biggest
all
deal in
good.
the world.
No, it's not. So he's brought into it. He goes ahead and works with him, and also they have a conversation quickly about the suit. And they both like Peter. We've seen him have drawings of the classic Spider-Man suit, and he's like, yeah. They both say they wish there was red and blue involved in it. Meanwhile, we find out though it's inspired by Captain America because they're both big Captain America fans.
Which that's cool and that makes sense. Like it would be if you were becoming a superhero in a world where Captain America existed. Of course you'd look up to him. Of course you want to emulate him.
Yeah. And they also, since Civil War is going on at that point, they have a quick conversation. Like they thought people were ditching Cap because they thought he was doing, they didn't agree with him. But then it also Harry says, hey, he was just trying to look out for his best friend. So I get it. I'm with him. I can sympathize with him. And, it's just so bizarre that we're covering Civil War this week. And meanwhile, that's a huge topic in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, like a through line here. So that all that leads to this whole fight here that the Unicorn goes there, breaks out her people. There's a fight with Spider-Man. They're going toe to toe. Harry's talking her through it and stuff. Is this voice in the guy in the chair in that episode, but she goes to a point where she sees Spider-Man's weakness. He gets distracted when there are civilians involved, and at one point she's going to go ahead and shoot her, the guy who we believe will become the Rhino. I don't know if they're relatives or not or whatever, but she goes to shoot him to draw Spider-Man out. He throws himself out, takes the shot. She's going to break his back, essentially, and he repays the favor and takes the Unicorn off. And Peter talks to him briefly. He's like, listen, don't talk to me like we're friends, because we're not. But I'm going to be in fucking jail now, along with her. So if I see you again, though, and you try your shit with me, I will kill you. I'm going to fuck you up, man.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting way to set that up down the line.
I thought that was cool too, and I like that, because we see something even before that between them two, where she's like, "No, we're gonna kill him," and he's like, "No, I was in for theft. I'm not in here to kill people." And so that's kind of the payoff is like he doesn't like Spider-Man, but he's not looking to kill him. He's not looking to kill anyone. So I thought that was an interesting kind of like villain division, right? Like, no, I'll steal from people. I'm not gonna hurt anyone.
Yeah. So. Then if we jump over to to Lonnie, Lonnie is basically being forced by Big Don he goes back to school, and we see he's been missing for a while. His teammates are razzing him, giving him some shit about it. And he goes ahead and he sends his part of his crew because he's like, the Scorpions are coming. We need all hands on deck. Pulls him out of school to fight in this thing. They have this whole, gang battle and stuff like that here. It reminded me of the Jets and the Sharks briefly. I was waiting for them to start doing the snapping and stuff. Yes.
When you're a scorp for the court.
They have this whole thing, but basically Lonnie saves Big Don, saves his life from him getting stabbed by Matt Gorgon. And, they have this talk afterwards. And he's like, yeah, man, you laid him out and stuff like that, like a real NFL player, like a pro and stuff like that, and he ends up nicknaming him Tombstone. He gets the name there, after, because he tells me, don't call me Superstar. He's been calling me Superstar all the time, and it's annoying. And he ends up getting the name Tombstone, and he likes it. And obviously that's setting up and letting you know, yes, this is going to be Spider-Man villain Tombstone.
Yeah.
And jump back at the end, Nico is waiting for Peter because they're going to go see a shitty B movie, which they thought spoke to me and you directly. They're going to go see it in the theater.
Absolutely.
But he brings Harry on board for this, but it was supposed to be a Nico Peter thing, and she kind of seems like bummed out. Do you think there's kind of like, are they shipping Nico and Peter, or do you think that was more like a friend?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Because this is also like, again, it's also what happens in the MCU, right? Like in Homecoming, he's got that love interest, and MJ is just a friend, and then it blossoms into something else. I think they're doing that but with Niku Minoru.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that wraps up. So we'll be getting episodes 6, 7, and 8 next week. And then it wraps up at 9 and 10, like just 4 weeks in and out, 10 episodes.
Then we're in a Daredevil.
Yeah. Anything else on your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man before we move on to our movie of the week?
Yeah, I did want to talk just a little bit about sort of the transition that Lonnie has, because you do actually, like, we kind of glossed over it, but you do see where, like, he has to make a hard choice, and it isn't a choice for him because he did this for his family, but like he plays football, and the coach is like, you're the captain and you've been ditching practice, and he's like, look, this isn't just high school football for you have a shot at the big time. And so that gives it more stakes. And then, Lonnie gets that text, and I think it's the text that has him go and get into this fight with Scorpion's gang, but he has to blow, after promising the coach he'll be at the next one, he literally blows it off. And so I think that's part of why I'm liking that storyline so much, because you're seeing this push and pull in his life. And I think, like, I really need to see how he becomes a villain, because he is such a good guy so far. Even after the fight, like, he wasn't there.
So, by the way, I'm also really glad that you mentioned that, because about Lonnie's football thing, because his coach is another like character in the Marvel universe that we saw back in the day, and I wanted to like bring up the comic book cover that was here.
I have no idea who this guy is.
NFL Super Pro, obviously them, and of course they have the Hawk Spider-Man on the first issue, because that's what they would always do at one point.
Hey, they did it for Sleepwalker, they did it for Darkhawk, they do it for everything.
He went from sacking quarterbacks to tackling crime.
Oh God, please give me this, and just a glimpse of this in this show. Give me the NFL Super Pro.
And this was 1991, by the way.
Of course it was. Of course it was, because the 90s was all about just generating going to care about by issue 2.
Yeah, I don't know how many issues NFL Super Pro ran in Marvel Comics, but apparently the coach in this is the character who became Super Pro. So yeah, I hope so. And by the way, it also ties in with this being Super Bowl Sunday. Bang! It all comes back around.
Crazy. Does he play for the Bruins?
Maybe he does, or the Nets. I don't know. They could be doing a draft right before. Oh man! All right, so let's keep it moving on here. Let's get to our movie of the week. As I mentioned, we can take off that spoiler ticker, because if you're going to get spoiled for this movie, then I don't know where the hell you've been.
Then you're not. I don't know. What are you even doing? This is like a 10-year-old movie at this point.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what's going on. So we're continuing our countdown to Captain America: Brave New World, which is next week, and that'll be our movie of the week next week. Through the Captain America franchise, that brings us to Captain America: Civil War. A movie I've always enjoyed. I've always really loved this. This movie does such incredible world building, and also leads up to a lot of things that happen in Infinity War and Endgame, and like really pushes the Infinity Saga forward, right? In so many ways, because we get the fracturing of the Avengers here, the introduction of Spider-Man, the introduction of Black Panther. No, there's a lot that goes on here, man. And the Russos, this is
the introduction of the Sokovia Accords.
Yeah, the Sokovia Accords, which, still is being talked about, even though, Matt Murdock does kind of like give us an update of what the hell happened to them in She-Hulk, in an episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. But I have a feeling that's going to get followed. The Sokovia Accords are going to be mentioned in Brave New World for sure, because, so what we understand,
sure, yeah.
President Ross is trying to reform the Avengers and wants Sam Wilson to help him. Dude, this movie is a fucking blast. This movie is top tier MCU in my book for sure, and still holds up incredibly well. And it brought a smile to my face to see so many of these big moments throughout this film.
I agree, and I'm gonna say this too. I think because when I first watched this, I was so like, oh my god, the big moments, all these people. Like I kind of slept on like some of the undercurrent stuff. Like I completely gave Zemo the short shrift when I first saw this. I said this in a text to you. I'm going to say it now. Zemo is the second best villain in the MCU, second only to Thanos, because they are the only two villains who actually accomplish what they set out to accomplish. He wins at the end of this movie, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, you're right. Zemo does win in this movie. Like he is definitely the clear-cut winner, right? Mission accomplished. He's still living because Black Panther stops him. He won't let him kill himself at the end of this movie. He got the Avengers to tear themselves apart.
Yep, and that's another beautiful moment too. The Black Panther arc, like something I didn't really appreciate. Like in that moment at the end, because I mean we're jumping around, but in that moment at the end where he hears Zemo's story. Because he puts his helmet down, he's going to kill him himself. That's why he's there. He hears Zemo's story, and he goes, "You have been." I'm not even going to try to do the Chadwick impression because he's got such a beautiful voice. Though I wish I could do that impression, but it was like, "You have been so consumed by revenge this whole time, and it's destroyed you." And he makes the decision that he's not going to allow that to happen, and that's why he doesn't kill him and winds up saving him. That's it. Like. That's a beautiful character moment having nothing to do with comic books.
Yeah, I agree. And it was also seeing Chadwick Boseman in this movie being introduced into the MCU when our first time seeing the Black Panther and everything like that. Man, that was another thing that brought like a huge smile to my face, like during this, because unfortunately, like he's passed away now and everything, and we don't have him. But man, he was such a presence in this film. And in every scene that he's in.
Oh yeah, that man could act. He was so good, and even small things like when Zemo shuts down the grid and he's activating the Winter Soldier, and you see just a shot of sort of Chadwick sitting there with his like arms crossed, and you see everyone escaping behind, and he just does like. Just these small moments that he has that really like were powerful.
Yeah, there's man. I am just so blown away with the Russos' ability to balance all these fucking characters, and I genuinely feel like nobody gets shortchanged. Everyone has their moment at different parts of this, right? Even in a film that is at its core is definitely a Captain America story. Right, because many have joked over time this is like Avengers 2.5 and stuff like that. Which, yes, there are a lot of the Avengers characters appear in this, except for Thor and Hulk, which I do think it was a smart decision to kind of like leave them out of this because it would have, I don't know, it just felt like it would have been they would have been overpowered for this battle, even if you split them up.
Agreed. And also Thor wouldn't give a shit either way, because you know who I am. I'm Thor, the God of Thunder. And
exactly.
Like and they actually do make that great comment, right? Where Stark is like, man, I wish we had a Hulk on our side. Any luck to Black Widow? And she's like, do you think he'd be on our side? No, I guess not. Like right there, that's all you need to know, right?
Yeah, I think Banner
Hulk, it would be overpowered. It wouldn't be for watch.
Yeah, and I do wonder, right? Like you mentioned that Banner was buddy with Tony at this point, right? Like they were BFFs, the Science Brothers, the Science Bros, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know if he would have been. I think he would have been Team Cap, to be completely honest with you.
I think so.
And you're right. Thor wouldn't have given a shit because he's not a hero. He doesn't give a shit what signing on Earth is.
No, you want to sign? Yeah, sign this.
Exactly.
Come get me an Asgard if you think you can. But also, even if Banner did sign the Accords, that doesn't mean the Hulk is going to take the side of the Accords. Like, you know, the Hulk, regardless of what Banner wanted, the Hulk would absolutely be Team Cap because, oh, you want me to sign the Accords? You want to look at me like a monster? Get out of here. You're not
exactly.
controlling me. Banner can't control me, and I am him.
No, that's actually a fair point because if Banner did side with him, as soon as he turns into the Hulk, done. Like
all bets are off.
Teams don't matter. That's also really good. A lot of the stuff like we get with Captain America throughout this film, his arc continuing where even in the beginning of the movie, where it's the only time we actually see that version of the Avengers in action. Because remember, this picks up after Age of Ultron, where Tony is kind of like somewhat stepped away. The team is Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Vision. Vision's on the team, but he's not on this mission with them per se. They're doing like an ops mission in Lagos here, and they're taking down Crossbones, which is another great follow-up to the events of the Winter Soldier. And Crossbones is hell-bent on killing Captain America. Like, he even tells his team at that point. Yeah, he's like, "Hey, I'm not coming back. I'm killing this motherfucker, and I'm gonna go down with him." And that leads to the whole event with Wanda trying to save Cap and lifting up that whole bomb, that dirty bomb essentially, and it goes up and it takes out the building and yada yada. But I thought that was also really interesting too, that we didn't see that Avengers team together outside of this one mission, really. And they acknowledge they've been on missions. Like, these are the Avengers now.
Yeah. But I think it's cool. They give us a taste of it, of what it looks like. And, you can't give us too much. It's a long movie, and they got a lot to do in this movie. And, I think it's cool watching. So they'll blame Scarlet Witch, and they blame the Avengers. Okay, so let's take Scarlet Witch out of the equation. So he blows himself up, levels a couple of city blocks, kills probably the same amount of people he killed in the building, and he also takes out Captain America. So would that have been preferable to the governments? Like, were the people in the buildings' lives more important than the people on the ground? Like, Scarlet Witch was literally trying to save people, not just Captain America, but everyone in that shopping center that they were fighting, whatever the hell it was they were fighting in. And so for them to be vilified afterward, it's like, that's a slap in the face.
I thought it was a bit unfair. And I guess that also can lead to the scene, right, with Ross after that, where he's showing them New York, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So Battle of New York from Avengers, D.C., the events of Winter Soldier and stuff like that, Sokovia, Age of Ultron, and then what happened now. And there is collateral damage with a lot of these things, but are you saying that maybe they should be better trained to not have collateral damage? Like, what are the Avengers doing that is in the wrong technically? Besides the ignoring sovereign borders, and he does make a case to say that they're a U.S.-based team, right? Like, they're a U.S.-based team, and you're ignoring sovereign borders and going all over the globe and doing whatever you want to whoever you want. You're judge, jury, and executioner, essentially. Right? That's where his part of it, which I can understand that part more. But the collateral damage part, I never got on board.
Yeah. No. I get the point there. But then again, like, this is a power play to have the Avengers take orders from him. I mean, that's what this is. And that's why Cap won't sign. But I think it's important to note, like, okay, let's go one by one for the collateral damage. You take the Avengers out of the battle for New York. Okay, so Earth is now ruled by Loki and Thanos. Wow, I guess you save those buildings. I mean, it's all right, you save those buildings, great, but now we're under the rule of a despot. Sokovia, sure, but you lay Sokovia at the feet of one Avenger. One. That is Tony Stark's fault.
Yes, I was going to
100%.
say that. Yeah, Sokovia, I can understand completely. Well, let's just. All right, so you're mentioning Sokovia, you're right? Because Tony and Banner created Ultron. Ultron started this whole thing, and that's where, yeah, you can bang on them about Sokovia, for sure. Battle of New York, I agree.
But you got to bang on.
Yeah.
But you got to bang on Stark for that. I mean, yeah, things went bad in Sokovia, but again, take the Avengers out of that and leave Stark, and you have Sokovia, the world, taken over by Ultron. Yep. Okay, they destroyed places in Sokovia. It sucks. The collateral damage was terrible. What's the alternative?
Yeah, just because. So if the Sokovia Accords existed before that, what? Yeah, you're right. Well, like, what changes? Do they not? So what if they decide not to send the Avengers in? That's what you're gonna do? Like, right. What is it? Are they saying that they would have stopped Tony from creating Ultron to begin with? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I do struggle with that part of it, I guess.
Yeah. And then the whole, like, the collateral damage for Winter Soldier, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Those of us who let fucking Hydra take over the government, raise your hands. Yeah, that's no one on the Avengers. That's kind of on you there, Ross. Where were you stopping Hydra from taking over the fucking American government and infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D.? Get the fuck out of here. You're blaming Captain America for this.
Yeah, or are they kind of like indirectly blaming the Avengers because he's really blaming, like, is he trying to blame Nick Fury? Who, by the way, is like nowhere to be. I mean, he faked his own death, so he's on his own secret missions while this whole thing's going down.
He's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. That was also another odd one here. By the way, quick nod. Farachi, what's up, dude? Super Bowl Sunday?
Boss man.
So, yeah, that's another thing I thought was just kind of odd with that choice there that was made. I don't know. Like, I can see going into this movie. Do you recall if you were Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
Oh wow! I'm as much as I love Iron Man and as much as I love Robert Downey Jr., I have always been Team Cap in this because, and I read the book before I watched the movie, and Cap is right. He is 100% right because they are weapons, and yeah, sure, maybe there should be some governance of how, maybe there should be someone in the government helping them do their job, but what the Sokovia Accords says is they do what they're told by the government, and no, the point.
Yeah,
because then what happens is, oh, the United States, well, hey, we think that the Middle East has weapons of mass destruction. We spell that OIL. Send in the Avengers to wipe them out.
They're a government agency then. Basically, they're a task force for the government.
Yep.
For the U.S. government, even more specifically. Yeah, I was Team Cap in the comics, and going into this was Team Cap. As much as I do love some of the characters on Team Iron Man, it was definitely going to happen, especially the fact that Spider-Man was being introduced into the MCU and was Team Iron Man. But I was going into this, I remember wondering how close this was going to be to the comics, because in the comics, Peter starts off as Team Iron Man, and in the middle of it, when Tony tries to fucking kill Peter Parker, he goes over to Team Cap when the Punisher rescues him, basically finds him near dead in a sewer, and brings him to Captain America.
Yeah, that's right. But in this, it's like he's not Team anyone. Tony Stark very wrongfully brings into this. And he's even like, oh, Captain America, I love you. I'm such a big fan. Like, he's just like, and he literally says, I'm just trying to impress Mr. Stark because I want a job.
Yeah, it's true. So he's basically kind of like being used as a weapon by Tony. And specifically to take out Cap. To take out Cap, because he knows, Tony knows hand to hand, he cannot beat him.
Yes, exactly. And again, I said, I posted this. One might argue that Tony Stark is the real villain of this movie. with a couple of things he does.
Yeah, I want to get back to that in a minute because I think I do want to like talk about some of the other points throughout this.
Let's do it.
Because that part there. So yeah, we get the death of Peggy Carter in this film, which I think is another huge moment for Tony. I mean, for Steve in this, and it's also really cool to see that Natasha goes out of her way to be there for Steve at that funeral because she didn't want him to be alone, following up on the friendship they formed in Winter Soldier, which I thought was a really cool moment as well.
I agree, and that is something that runs through here, especially with Natasha, of regardless of the fact that we don't agree with each other, we're still friends. And you see that in the battle, right? When Hawkeye and her are fighting, she goes, we're still friends, right? And Hawkeye's like, depends on how hard you hit me. And then Scarlet Witch is like, boom, you were pulling your punches. Like, you know, she still cares about these people. I think she's the one who's most torn by this. Like, Cap knows what's right. Iron Man feels very, very guilty. And, you know, I want to talk about that scene with Alfrea Wood, Tony's choice. But Natasha's in the middle. Natasha's like, I get both sides of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she never, I guess she, in a way, she doesn't really fully commit to either side. You're right, throughout the film, because even though she signs the Accords and she tries to convince Steve to do it, even though she knows he won't, she still helps them, Bucky and Steve, escape at the end and slows down T'Challa while he's going after them. So I think that is interesting. That's never a full commitment one way or the other.
No, and she says, "I promised you. I told you I'd help you find him, not help you catch him."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
you know, that's the division with her, and I think she's probably the most interesting character in this because of that. Because I think she's wrestling with her loyalty. These are my friends. I've got loyalty to both. I see both sides, but what do I do here? And I just think that's super interesting because everyone else on
oh yeah, because like Rhodey is basically, you know, more or less Tony's Bucky, right? Or his Sam Wilson, maybe like combined.
Right.
So yeah, they're all like, you know, Vision, Tony created Vision for the most part, right? Banner's not there. So you can see why some of them are essentially with Tony on this and they have his back on this. And then you can understand why those who are with Cap, you know, are there. And one of the funniest people that they do pull out is Scott Lang. And it's a nice follow-up. It's a nice follow-up to that moment where Sam Wilson, Falcon, has that brief battle with him in Ant-Man. And they directly follow up on it because he's like, I got a guy. And goes and gets him because, you know, they reference that. But Scott Lang's glow when he sees Steve Rogers is hilarious. And it's more than this is the first time. It happens a couple of times throughout the MCU.
Yeah, no, because he's just starstruck because he's not a superhero in his head. He really isn't a superhero. He's a thief who got this suit. Now he works with Pym. You know, this is when he becomes like this is when he becomes an Avenger, quote unquote.
Yeah,
He's on the wrong side of the Avengers, but I love that he's always so starstruck by the Avengers.
Yeah, and remember also this also gets followed up in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where, you know, when they find out why he's on house arrest and everything, and he refers to him as Cap, and then, you know, Wasp gives him some shit about it, like, oh, Cap, yeah, like that's your friend now, like that's your buddy now, or you're really cool with him.
You're being
yeah, exactly. That I always thought was really funny. And also Scott Lang has some great moments in the airport battle too, where he becomes Giant Man and stuff like that for the first time. Also the moment that I have on my T-shirt here, where he gets launched by Hawkeye on the edge of the arrow, which I thought was cool.
And even when he surprises Spider-Man because he was riding on Cap's shield was cool. Like that was. But my favorite Scott Lang moment is when he's like, "Oh no, I can do this. I can do something. I've done it a bunch of times. Well, once in a science lab, and I passed out. And then afterward, when he shrinks back down, he's like, Any of you have any orange slices?
Every time I see orange slices since this movie, I think of Scott Lang saying that. Every single time. Anyone got any orange slices?
So good. It was so fun.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great moments. And then I guess also, let's talk about Spider-Man. The Spider-Man in this, we get the intro with him where Tony goes to his as soon as Queens flashes up on the screen, I remember it being in the theater and getting I got goosebumps immediately because I knew what was coming. And we get that moment that was referenced in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where they have the apartment. We get an introduction to Aunt May, Marissa Tomei's Aunt May here. And they have that conversation here. We get the workaround rewording of, with great power comes great responsibility, that he kind of explains. And they do a nice job of working around that. And we find out Tony has seen him on YouTube in various clips here, stopping buses and shit like that. And they have a pretty fun conversation with that, especially when he's like, hey, you got a passport? You want to come to Germany? Ever been to Germany before? He's like, no, but I got homework. And pretend you didn't just say that. Which it just showed. I just because they got Peter Parker so right.
They did, and I love the two moments I love from that scene is when he's like, no, that's not me. I mean, that's on YouTube. They make that stuff up. And Tony's looking around, and he sees the trap door on the top, and he knows exactly what's up there, and he sits it, and the suit falls down. That, and when he goes, all right, I guess I'll just have to tell Aunt May who you are. And Spider-Man webs his hand to the door, and he's like, okay. And they have that moment. Peter agrees to go, and Tony takes a beat, and he just goes, can you get me out of this now? Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And then he has that moment that we saw in the trailers for this movie too, where he grabs Cap's shield and stuff like that, and he's got it. The first time he sees Spider-Man is when he's holding Captain America's shield, where after he webs him up and everything, and just tells him how much of a big fan he is of Cap. And dude, he takes down Falcon and Winter Soldier fairly easily in the airport battle too.
Yeah, and I think the only reason they get to jump on him is because he's green. You know what I'm saying? Because they wound up getting to jump on him because Falcon uses the I forget what he calls it. He has the name for it, but the flying bird, Red Wing. So, but yeah, had it not been had it been Superman maybe now, I think that wouldn't have happened.
No, you're right. He's been more trained now, but he's like super. You're right, like you mentioned, he's super green. He's only has powers for like a couple of months at this point.
Yeah.
So,
which is why I feel it is wildly irresponsible for Tony Stark with no training and nothing but here's a new suit, 16-year-old kid, go fight Captain fucking America. Very wildly irresponsible.
Yeah, he's incredibly irresponsible with Peter Parker in this. And I do wonder if that's why he is the way he is with him in Homecoming, where he's like overly
probably
protective of him, right? Because maybe even Tony realizes it.
Yeah, because Tony at his core is not a bad guy. His core, get it? Is not a bad guy. But he can be a very selfish guy, and I think that's what makes his sacrifice at the end of his arc in Endgame so huge, because he chooses the greater good, which and that's what makes his attempted sacrifice in Avengers, because he is a very selfish person, but he does feel bad about it after. So I think there's something to that, where he's kind of the overbearing father figure in Homecoming, because he knows just how wrong he was in making Spider-Man fight Captain America.
And also you can look at it too, is that his whole wow, I didn't think I really connected this before this, but his relationship with Peter Parker, Tony's relationship with Peter Parker moving forward, he feels extremely responsible for him, and that's probably because he does acknowledge it. Because even in Infinity War, and when he takes him on, he tries to tell him not to go on that mission. He tries to get him off that ship, and Peter follows with him. And then, once he gets blipped and gets dusted, like he feels horrendous about it. Seeing a picture of him with Peter is one of the reasons he decides to participate in Endgame in the time heist.
Yes. Yep.
Oh.
So yeah, this decision very cleverly reverberates throughout the rest of Tony's arc.
Yeah. Peter also has that great moment which I love, with Captain America, where they're going head to head and fighting briefly, and they have the Queens Brooklyn conversation.
Yeah,
which New York is like ourselves. It was heartwarming. Yeah,
yeah. Where you from, kid? Queens, Brooklyn. And then that's followed up in the end credit scene where May's like, "Who hit you? Some guy named Steve. Steve who? I don't know. He's from Brooklyn."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, their relationship is so awesome, and that whole little fight thing there that you get, and also Peter helping to take down Giant Man because he saw Empire Strikes Back. Anyone seen that old movie Empire Strikes Back when they have these walking thingies and stuff and thinking about like taking down the ATTs and stuff? And Rhodey's comment to that is basically saying, how old is this fucking kid? And Tony's like, I didn't carbon date him. I mean, he's young, man.
I love that he didn't carbon date him. And so speaking of Rhodey, when we're done with Spider-Man, I kind of
no, go ahead. I'm good with Spider-Man. I was leading into Rhodey.
Okay, so we are now again. I do have maybe one or two dings for this movie. It's not like Winter Soldier where I'm like, no, I only got negative dings that ding other things around it. But this made me more enraged about Secret Invasion, because you mean to tell me that the Rhodey at the end of this that is learning how to walk again is a Skrull?
I don't know if it's necessarily he's a Skrull in this movie, or my interpretation was he was a Skrull after this movie. Like, this is the last time we see real Rhodey until Secret Invasion when he's rescued.
Okay, because I thought I had read somewhere that it was after the accident. So
you might be right. I'm just saying that's just been my brief interpretation of it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But still, like it really makes me angry that Secret Invasion made that very stupid decision, because like it's important that Rhodey gets hurt in this movie, right? That's real world consequences of when the Avengers fight each other. And I forgot this moment, but I think it's super interesting that it was not one of the Cap Avengers who did it. It was Vision.
Because he was distracted, because this movie starts planting the seeds of the relationship between Vision and Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah.
You can see them flirting as the movie goes on. You see Vision's got some feelings for her, and she starts getting them back. And he had the Sokovian like paprika thing that he makes for her. And in this moment, because he gets distracted when he sees Wanda's there laying in his arms, and Tony calls for Vision's help, and he accidentally misses. He fires at Falcon, misses, and hits Rhodey and takes out his arc reactor and causes him to crash and get fucking paralyzed.
Right. And I think a couple things to unpack there, right? One, it's the consequences of what happens when you fight your fucking friends. And notice that the consequence happens to someone on Iron Man's side because they are in the wrong.
Responsible side.
Right? That's the first thing. The responsible side. Of the Accords, governing us. Well, maybe you guys do, but not these guys. That's the first thing. Second, what would have happened if he would have hit Falcon? Because Falcon would have fallen too, and Falcon wouldn't have had a fucking armor, a suit. Yeah, he would have killed him.
Yep.
So was that the more responsible thing? And then thirdly, Falcon very easily could have used that moment to escape, but he dives down just like Tony does to try to save Rhodey. Neither of them could get there on time. And when Sam Wilson goes to check on Rhodey, I love my Iron Man, I love my RDJ, but he literally just sucker shoots him. And knocks him out. It's like, I thought that was like he was coming to help. He was coming to check on his friend. They were friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely they were. And I do think that is one. It leads to the moment later on in the movie, which I think we can get to in a second, because this is one more character I wanted to talk about before we get to the end. Is when I think that's him, just like his best friend. He sees that his best friend is down, and he's petrified, that he's paralyzed. He knows he's barely alive, and he's not even thinking. It's just kind of like when Tony sees Bucky kill. He sees the security footage later on. He's not thinking about that, because he first even says, "I don't care whether he was brainwashed or not. He killed my mom," which, by the way, he did kill your dad also, which I don't know what that was about. But yeah, he says he killed my mom.
Yeah.
He didn't say Martha. He didn't say, "How dare you say that name?"
Why would you say that name?
Exactly.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up, because this and Justice League, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice / Hey, it's Wonder Woman, guys, came out around the same time as this.
Yep.
And they have very similar story arcs. But this is done very well, and that is done very poorly. But it's very similar in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, besides just the basic hero-on-hero battle. Like, you're right. It's, essentially responsibility versus what's being deemed as irresponsible. Like unchecked power.
Right. Right,
And originally,
exactly.
they were supposed to come out on the same day. And Warner Brothers is the one, DC is the one that blinked in that game of chicken. Because they were like, we can't fuck with the
Good for them.
at this point. Exactly.
Nah, they would have lost. They would have lost big time.
Exactly. So before we get to the end point of this too, I wanted to talk about Agent 13, Sharon Carter, in this. This is the big reveal that she is Peggy's niece, and Steve was not aware of this at any point. She kept it that close to the vest, and they have that conversation and stuff like that. And she's obviously loyal to Steve Rogers also throughout this, because she does tip off him and Sam throughout this to try to track down Bucky. So she's definitely Team Cap all the way. And then it also leads to that moment where he gets the shield back and gets Falcon's suit, the bird costume back, as they refer to it as.
Bird costume.
The bird costume. And there's that really funny moment that became a meme when Sharon and Steve kiss, and you get the reaction of Sam and Bucky of, yeah. And because Steve does look around for a second, and they're just like, oh yeah. Like they probably had that line.
I do have to say that's one of my few dings on the movie, is them kissing. And not but it's, hear me out. It's not that I don't think it was earned, because it was earned in those first two movies. It's just like it happens right after he finds out that she's Agent Carter's like relative, Peggy Carter's relative, and Peggy Carter, the love of his life, is dead. And now it's like, oh well, I got to keep it in the family, I guess. And I know that wasn't the intention. But it was just the way it was set up. It felt like, well, one Carter down, the younger one to go. And it just felt weird to me in where it comes. Like, had they kissed in Winter Soldier, and then you found out later that she was Peggy Carter, like Cap didn't know, I would have felt different about it. But, like, the fact that he knows, and now it's like, now I'm making my move, now that I know it's Peggy Carter's niece. It's like, that was weird for me.
So I'm gonna throw this out to you, because this is why I wanted to bring this up. I thought this was important to discuss. Do you think that him and Sharon had a relationship between movies?
No, I don't.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of think I think they might have. I kind
this
of
looks
feel
like to me like, but this looks to me like their first kiss.
I know they say something briefly where it's like long overdue or something like that. There's a brief line in that scene where they do say that and stuff. But it's just because of the way that their interactions were, throughout Winter Soldier at times, and throughout the early scenes that they share in this. I don't know. There's always been a part of me that wondered if they had, or maybe it was a will they, won't they thing. at least. I don't know.
I don't think for me the way it like it was the first kiss. I think if there was a thing, then wouldn't they have been a bit more supportive to each other during Peggy Carter's funeral? I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see any connection or chemistry between them. At, like, not chemistry like a will they won't they, because that's what they have going, but hey, we've already kind of done some things. Like, yeah. I don't get that vibe off of those characters.
Okay, I kind of always thought there was until yesterday when I'm watching it. There is a deleted scene as I watched the deleted scenes after this, there is a deleted scene that kind of takes the place of the scene that I was just talking about with Bucky and Sam witnessing their kiss. And they're having like a lunch together and stuff like that. And it's the same dialogue, so I'm assuming this was a replacement scene. And it definitely gives the vibe off more that they were kind of a thing. Or that there was something there. At least there was something there. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that they like slept together before or anything like that, or they were dating necessarily. But I don't know. It seemed like there was something there. And I know in these Civil War comics, this was a controversial choice that was made at the time, because I don't know about you, but did you ever read any of these side issues of the main Civil War comics?
Just the Spider-Man stuff.
All right, because I read the Spider-Man, I read the Captain. Okay, because the Captain America one was the other one that I had read, and there is a thing where they establish that these two have a relationship. He has a relationship with Sharon Carter because he's hiding out in her apartment, basically.
Okay.
Even though obviously that Civil War is different.
Yeah. It strikes me as maybe they were toying with the idea of making that, because I didn't watch the deleted scenes, but this, from what you describe, it sounds like, yeah, I get why you got that impression there, but yeah. I think it's a deliberate choice to not include it in the movie. Mm-hmm. And so I think that they made the choice to, make it this to be their first whatever, their first get together. Just because in what is in the movie, I kind of don't get otherwise.
No, and that's fair. And I'm not gonna play with a deleted scene because I do think it was a replacement scene. No. I think that that they're not the same thing. Obviously, they made their creative choice to go in a different direction. But I don't know. Well, also, what kind of sucks is that relationship never gets followed up on again. Steve Rogers with another Carter. No,
never happens, because she goes and becomes the fucking bad guy, or the freaking bad guy. I mean, which again, seeing her in this context, I really don't like that choice.
Well, I do think what they could have done is that they could have insinuated in Infinity War that while Cap was on the run with his Avengers, that Sharon was helping him stay low key.
Yes.
Or he could have just said, "Hey, I don't want to endanger Sharon. I don't want to endanger Sharon Carter, so I'm going to not even contact her," which is probably the choice that he actually did make.
Right, but it's never really explored one way or the other. She's just forgotten until she comes back in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, they gotta. That's a thread that they have to clean up that thread, whether it's in Brave New World or not. I do want to see the Sharon Carter thing cleaned up.
I do too, and I'll be honest with you, knowing what I know about how Cap's arc in the MCU ends completely, it kind of makes it even weirder, that kiss, because he goes back and lives a whole life with Peggy Carter, her aunt. Does he ever have the conversation, "Hey, in the future when you die, I kind of kissed your niece. You cool with that?" Or does he just let that lie?
I think he just buries that one, and that's it. Because it never happens technically in his timeline. So
yeah, but it does happen.
It did happen in his memory. Yes, he lived it. But
I guess that's the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff of time travel.
Yeah. So another thing as we kind of go towards the end of the movie, so we get to see the raft because that's where Team Cap essentially is sent. So that was cool to see that, because that's a big part of in the comics as well, Civil War. But Tony also goes there to kind of extend the olive branch, because he finds out that Bucky didn't really kill T'Chaka. He sees he was framed by Zemo, and goes with it. So it just shows me though that Tony at that point was still trying to reach out. Like he was still trying to like bury the hatchet with Cap, even after the airport battle and stuff like that. A little more progression.
Well, the true schism of the Avengers. Please stop. The true schism of the Avengers is really only happens after Tony Stark sees Winter Soldier kill his parents. Like, because even in the airport battle, he says, Natasha says, well, what's your plan? He goes, my plan was to go easy on them. And then, they're pulling their punches. These people are friends. They're not trying to really hurt each other,
match,
except for Vision.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Vision's the only one who goes for a death shoot.
He was distracted by Wanda. T'Challa, that's why.
Yeah, but like he tried to shoot the Falcon down. He missed because he was distracted.
He was thinking with his wrong head. I think at that very moment.
Yes, he was thinking with little Vision.
Exactly. Well done. That was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
But the real schism does not happen until the end of that movie, when Tony and Captain America have that battle, because Tony sees what Winter Soldier did. In Tony's head, he's like, I'm going to get Cap in. And he tries this. I'm going to convince him to sign the Accords. We're going to make everything legal that he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. It doesn't change until that moment.
Yeah. And also, it's also reestablished, too, that the way Tony's vision, his relationship with Cap, with Steve Rogers, is very much kind of like, you're the perfect, like, son that Howard maybe like, yes, or friend that never had. Like, he kind of sees him as like this like thing that Howard praised so much, a person that Howard praised so much that Tony could never live up to, right? Because yes, Tony has that arc where he can never get his father's full approval, and that plays throughout the MCU, until the end, even in Endgame.
Absolutely. And there are so many moments in this movie where you see Tony's passive aggressiveness or outright aggressiveness. Like, even when they're talking about if they should sign the Accords before the Peggy Carter's funeral, he says, Cap, I love you, but sometimes I just want to punch your face in. It's like, so that's why at the end
and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's it. Your perfect little teeth. And then you have the moment with, oh, you knew my father? Well, I didn't know that. He only told me 1,000,000 times that you were the best and he wished you were his son and blah, blah, blah. And that's why I realized in the moment when, Steve chooses Bucky and he's like, that's my friend. And Iron Man is like, I was once too. It makes me kind of go, no, you weren't. You don't like this guy. You work well. You guys are work friends, right? You guys are colleagues. It's kind of like when the Hulk sees Thor, like, hey, I know that guy from work, but like, you might respect Captain America, but you have this deep-seated dislike of him because of everything you went through with your father and how this is clearly like, a better version of you. So it made it more poignant to me when he said that, because it's like, no, Tony, you were not being a good friend at all in this.
Yeah, even though, and I guess that was Tony's way throughout this. We see Tony, I guess, his version of trying to be a good friend to him. I don't know, like, I don't think he hates Steve Rogers. I think he's just jealous of Steve Rogers.
Yes, he's got deep-seated animosity that comes from the jealousy. Absolutely.
Yeah, because Steve Rogers had the relationship with Howard Stark that Tony wishes he had.
Right.
That's what I think.
But really instead of that's 100% it. But he's blaming Captain America for that, and that is not it is not Captain America's fault that he was born in the 1900s and frozen in the sea and gets brought back out now, and like Captain America didn't do anything wrong. And so that's why I'm like, how much could they really have? What friendship could they really have if in the back of Stark's mind, there's always this looming animosity of, I really hate the fact that you got to know my father in a way I didn't.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Yeah. Or he kind of just sees, Or he sees Steve as his like older brother that he can't.
Yes.
He sees Steve as his older brother who his father put on this big pedestal that he can't ever really rise to in his mind,
Right.
At least. So he sees the footage. Zemo launches his plan. He goes to get them to fight. Shows them, mission report. December 16th, 1991. We find out what that mission report was in this VHS thing, and it sets them off. And that's when Tony's just seeing red, and goes and he has this. He fights. He does. And listen, kudos to him, but he fights Steve Rogers and Bucky at the same exact time, basically 2-on-1 fight. And he has the Iron Man suit, and he's got Friday's help. Because they even have that cool thing where they get the combo pattern and stuff there so he can fight back on him. Because without that, he was getting his ass handed to him. And he does say that. And the moment that got to me, and this is definitely something you would notice much later on, there was a moment when he takes the shield and doesn't kill Tony, because he could have. And he takes out his arc reactor to power out his suit to basically end this fight. That made me think this time, and the only time I ever watched this, it made me think back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, John Walker, when he had the shield. And what he chose to do with his thing and murder somebody with that shield. That was definitely a moment that was like mirrored. And I don't even remember if we talked about this during our review of Falcon and Winter Soldier. But holy shit, did that smack me in the face this time around.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we probably didn't talk about it because it had been a while since either of us saw Civil War. Yeah. But yeah, and that's I love that they mirrored that, because he could have killed Tony, but he's Captain America. He doesn't want to kill anyone. But he also can't have Tony running slipshod trying to kill Winter Soldier, right?
Exactly.
And to be honest, I think if Bucky was attacking Iron Man and he was trying to kill Iron Man, I think he'd put Bucky down. Not kill him, but he would he'd power him down. I think Steve made the choice of, okay, Bucky's trying to defend himself. Stark is trying to kill him. I can't let that happen. But I think if the roles were reversed, it would have been the Winter Soldier he would have been trying to take. Not kill, because he doesn't want to kill anyone, but power down to end the fight.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you that too, because there is that moment that Cap has with Bucky when everyone's after him, and he's like, "I'm the one who should be able to bring him in," and he also says the reason why. He actually says flat out, like, if Bucky's this far gone, because at that moment he thinks that Bucky may have killed T'Chaka. If he's this far gone, I want to be the one to bring him in, because I'm also the one least likely to die trying. Which is
right.
Amazing, because I do think Steve went there with the idea, you're right, I'm going to power him down. But if not, I don't think he was going to let him fuck him up like he did at the end of Winter Soldier. I think he was going to knock him out at least, or, he wasn't going to murder him, you're right. But he was going to do whatever he had to do to contain him and stop him this time.
Yeah. Because at the end of Winter Soldier, it's, okay, I've already stopped the threat. He's not the threat right now. I'm going to, let's see what happens. I'm willing to risk my life to do this, but I'm not willing to risk others. Mm-hmm. And it's the same principle. If Bucky's gone back to his assassin ways, then he's got to be dealt with, and I'm the one to do it. That's my best friend. I should be the one to bring him in, which ultimately is what Stark is saying about Captain America, right? He's gone rogue. He's my friend. He's my teammate. I should be the one to bring him in. So, I think that's a really interesting parallel as well. And I think, Cap does what needs to be done. He's unlike Stark. He's not blindly overcome with his emotions, right? He is willing to listen to Bucky and hear Bucky out. But if things go bad, he's also willing to bring Bucky in and do what has to be done. Stark is so overcome with his guilt and his grief in this. Every decision Tony makes in this movie is because he, feels guilty about what happens at Sokovia, and we get that with the Alfrea Woodward moment by the invader. Mm-hmm. B, to win back Pepper Potts because he promised to step away and he didn't. And he literally says that. I thought the Accords would bring her back.
Well, I actually, I know you texted that, and I wanted to kind of push back on that a little bit after I rewatched it. So I know I know he says, about the Accords when he's explaining why he would sign them, right? Because it's that moment him and Steve are having that conversation, and he does say that he feels like signing the Accords would split the difference, right? Like that he would not be active Iron Man all the time, right? He wouldn't be Avenger Tony Stark all the time. He would have downtime, and then he can kind of, again, he would be doing both at the same time because he admits he doesn't want to stop being Iron Man. Like that's not his not his end game here. He lost Pepper, at least at this moment, because he didn't, after Iron Man 3, when he blew up all his suits, which he does reference, he doesn't want to stop. That's it. Like he feels like he's doing good and stuff like that. But the Sokovia Accords would give him downtime to also get Pepper. But I kind of don't think that was his motivation to sign the Accords, though. I think he just kind of figured, like, hey, that's the gravy on top, is the way I took it.
I think it plays into it. I think mostly the motivation is the guilt over Ultron and Sokovia.
Yeah.
Right? But
and
I do
the woman
think
in the elevator and everything. Yeah.
Right. But I do think that part of it is to, get Pepper back. I think part of it is that. And even if it is, well, it splits the difference. Like, because again, he's being very selfish here. Well, I want my cake and eat it too. I'm Tony Stark. I should be able to be Iron Man and have Pepper Potts and not hurt anyone. And this is the way I'm going to get what I want. And so, as opposed to Cap, who was like, and this is really shown too when Cap almost signs. He almost signs the Accords, if you remember. And he says, yeah, okay, well, we'll set you up. We'll set Scarlet Witch up. And he's like, wait a minute. What's going on with Wanda? And that's why he doesn't sign it. So he could have made the selfish decision for himself. Yep. Yeah. He could have made the selfish decision for himself to get his life back, but he's not willing to sacrifice the lives of others who have no agency for themselves, and Tony is. And I think that's the big difference between the two in this movie.
Yeah, and Steve follows up with his monologue afterwards, right? Like when they show him sending the phone to Tony and stuff via FedEx, and we get the Tony Stank moment, and the Stan Lee cameo is there, which is great.
Tony
and
Stank.
He says in that Tony Stank, and then Rhodey's never going to let that go. Apparently, he says though that he's never really belonged anywhere he's been in the military and everything like else. But his thing is he believes in people. Like that's his thing. Like that's what his motivating is. You're right. That ties into because once he hears that Wanda's being held captive, he's like, "Fuck this!" Like, no, this is what we're talking about. Like, you're taking away free will and a choice for people to have. That's true freedom, which is also what he fought for in Winter Soldier when they were trying Project Insight. Same thing. So if you take away what is true freedom, Captain America is pushing back every single time.
Yeah,
because that's the ideal.
That's literally why he wants to get into World War II, right? Because the Nazis are taking away freedom and punishing people who have no agency. And Tony even says, like, well, I mean, what do you expect them to do with Wanda? She's like a non-American, like without.
She's not an American citizen. Yeah, he says they don't get to give passports to like nuclear weapons or something like that.
Right, exactly, and I think that really triggers him because that's very much like, okay, so it's an us versus them, and even though we're the Avengers, we're singling her out because she's not American, and I part of that is that. That's why I'm Team Cap here, and that's why I really feel that this is an exploration of kind of what American ideals and values are philosophically, which is Captain America. Mm-hmm. And what they are in practice, which is, I don't want to say Tony Stark, but definitely Thunderbolt Ross and the Sokovia Accords, right?
Correct. I agree. All right, and then we get that mid-credit scene afterwards where there's a mid in the post. The mid is when we find out that Steve has brought Bucky to Wakanda, and he's going to go back under the ice, and he's going to be held there and stuff like that. And Steve even tells T'Challa, like, hey, if they find out he's here, they're going to come for him. And he's like, basically, I'll let them try. And then we kind of see Wakanda for the first time. And the post-credit scene is the funny one where, Peter is in his room and he talks to Aunt May. And the main thing you had mentioned earlier, like some guy, Steve, not from down the hall, but from Brooklyn, is the one who punched him and stuff like that. And he has like the spider on the ceiling and stuff. So, yeah, man, this is when we're up to date on the MCU later this year, when we rank these things, Captain America: Civil War and Winter Soldier, top tier MCU still to this date. I mean, my opinion, they're both phenomenal.
And before we leave this, I do want to talk. I want to talk through Zemo because again, I think a big critique of the MCU pre-Thanos and I guess still post-Thanos is they don't have strong villains. And I think Zemo is the second strongest villain after rewatching this because he wins, right? And I love that the red herring is you think he's trying to find and activate this, army of dangerous super soldiers so he can, take over the world or whatever. But it's not. He actually goes and kills them. And he's like, and we see that hatred for super soldiers pay off way more with Zemo and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love that he's like, oh, they died in their sleep. That's not why I was here. And everything he does is calculated. Like he plays the Avengers like chess pieces against each other. Like even getting them to where they are, he wanted them there. That's why, and I didn't pick up on this the first time I watched this, or the last time I watched it besides this one, he makes the call to tip off the authorities in a roundabout way the fact that he murdered the guy whose place he took to get in and have that conversation with Bucky.
Which, by the way, is also I believe it's Anthony Russo.
Oh, is that Anthony Russo?
Yes, it is.
That's awesome.
Because he makes a cameo in every single one of these movies that he directed.
That's fantastic. But yeah, and so he gives them the breadcrumbs. He wants them to follow every step of the way.
Joe Russo. Sorry, Joe Russo, not Anthony Russo.
Okay. And then when you get his actual backstory about why he's doing it, like, we lived outside of town. I thought we'd be safe. I came home. My family's dead. My kid's dead. And nothing is done about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that. That's real to me. And he's like, I couldn't kill them. Better people have tried to kill each other. And they don't kill each other, but he destroys the Avengers. Like the Avengers doesn't exist again until Infinity War.
Yeah, and they're also still split at that point. But you got to wonder if the Avengers were not split, right? When Thanos showed up, would they have a better chance at fighting him off initially?
I think so, sure. Because those aliens would have landed, and so, and that's why I think it was real funny at the end when we get the Hobbit, I forget his name, but the guy who is the
Ross, Agent Ross, yeah,
Wakanda agent from Black Panther. When he's like, you lost. How does that feel? You're behind bars. We caught you. You lost. And Zemo just smiles like, did I?
Yeah.
Because he didn't. He is one of two villains to win and get what he wants.
You're 100%. I can't. There's no dispute there. You're right. He's one of them. I mean, granted, this is also before what we see in Falcon and Winter Soldier when he's dancing and the whole thing, the whole and all that. It's like way different than this Zemo because you're right because he's already won. He already got his his wish, so he can do that kind of thing.
And again, the Zemo we see is a Zemo who has had years to sit and deal and process with the grief of losing his family, and he's clearly driven by grief and trauma, right? Mm-hmm. He lost his family. The people who were supposed to save people. And he even says, this was so heartbreaking, my son was so excited to see Iron Man flying outside our car window. Yeah. So like that's also huge. And so now I think and let's not say Zemo was always villainous, right? Zemo was part of this shady special ops in Sokovia, and he might not have been a great guy, but that doesn't matter. That's not his motivation. Isn't his villainy in this movie? It's grief and trauma. And then when we see him, we catch up with him in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah, he's kind of worked past that, and now we get to see some of his villainy, and that's, I'm interested in that too. I think it that's one of the things I really laud Captain Winter Soldier for, is in enriching the Zemo character more than what we've seen here. But I personally always slept on what a great villain he was.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. He usually does get very much overlooked when you're talking about Thanos and, you know, Killmonger and even Red Skull. You know, I put up there, I think he's also overlooked in that film. And even Kingpin has been lauded now that he's officially in the MCU.
Yeah.
All right, so that kind of wraps it up for us this week. Thanks for joining us as always. If you joined us on the Facebook live stream, be sure to check out Grandy's Peach Cheese Facebook group. That's where we share a bunch of stories and trailers and all this other stuff that don't make the show. Also check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com, because that's who we are presented by. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros or wherever you found your audio-only podcast. Jason and I will be back next week to talk about our movie of the week. Will be Captain America, Brave New World. We got new movie week next week, which is always exciting.
That's right.
Jason and I will be seeing it on Thursday on preview night, so excited for that. We'll have another episode of Harley Quinn to talk about. Also, 3 more episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and another episode of Invincible. So, everyone, we'll see you next week, and peace.